There comes a point in life when age no longer measures how long you've lived, but how deeply you've understood the world. Most people think turning 80 is a slow step into the background. In reality, it is when life becomes brutally honest. You begin to see things you were too busy, too patient, or too polite to notice before. The habits people carry, the behaviors they hide, and the truth they avoid. Age exposes all of it without mercy. Today, we are unraveling two habits many seniors unknowingly carry into their 80s. Habits that quietly push people away, damage relationships, and create emotional distance at a time when connection matters more than ever. These habits don't come from weakness. They come from survival, from decades of doing the best you could. But if you don't recognize them now, they can turn your later years into a lonely chapter you never intended to write. The first habit is unfiltered negativity. After a lifetime of stress and responsibility, it becomes easy to focus on what's wrong instead of what's left. Some seniors spend entire days pointing out flaws, expecting disappointment, or assuming the worst. Not because they're ungrateful, but because they've spent decades bracing for impact. But constant negativity drains the energy of everyone around you. It makes family visit less, friends stay silent, and even small moments feel heavy. Being realistic is wise. Being negative is isolating. And at 80, isolation becomes a slow emotional decline. The second habit is resisting new ways of doing simple things. Many seniors cling to the idea that their way is the right way simply because it worked in the past. But the world they grew up in no longer exists. Technology, communication, even household methods, everything has moved on. When you shut the door on learning, you also shut the door on connection. Children stop asking for advice. Grandchildren stop visiting. Loved ones stop explaining because they expect resistance. Adaptability isn't about keeping up with the world. It's about staying connected to the people in it. As the years pile up, something subtle begins to happen inside a person. You become protective of your space, your habits, and your routines. There is comfort in familiarity, and comfort becomes a kind of quiet shelter. But this is where the third habit begins to take root. The habit of emotional withdrawal. Many seniors don't even notice it happening. One day you simply stop sharing your thoughts. You avoid conversations that require energy. You answer questions with one-word replies, and you convince yourself that silence is easier than explaining how you feel. But emotional withdrawal sends a message you never intend to send. It makes your family think you don't care. It makes your children assume you've given up. It makes your grandchildren believe you're uninterested. And without meaning to, you start building a wall that nobody knows how to climb. People stop asking deeper questions because they worry they're intruding. They stop inviting you out because they assume you prefer being alone. Bit by bit, life becomes quieter. Not because people left you, but because your silence pushed them away. Remaining emotionally open isn't about sharing everything. It's about letting the people who love you know they still matter. The fourth habit is living too much in the past. Memory is a beautiful gift, but it becomes a burden when you use it as your only place of comfort. Many seniors spend hours revisiting old arguments, old regrets, or old triumphs. They compare the present to the past until the present feels disappointing by default. But nostalgia has a sharp edge. It can make the life you have feel smaller than the life you lived. When every conversation begins with "back in my day," younger generations quietly disconnect. They cannot live in your memories, and they cannot compete with your past. Life at 80 becomes richer when you allow the present to have value. Your past is wisdom, but your present is still alive, still unfolding, still offering moments worth noticing. Living only in yesterday is the quickest way to lose today. As the years pile up, something subtle begins to happen inside a person. You become protective of your space, your habits, and your routines. There is comfort in familiarity, and comfort becomes a kind of quiet shelter. But this is where the third habit begins to take root. The habit of emotional withdrawal. Many seniors don't even notice it happening. One day you simply stop sharing your thoughts. You avoid conversations that require energy. You answer questions with one-word replies, and you convince yourself that silence is easier than explaining how you feel. But emotional withdrawal sends a message you never intend to send. It makes your family think you don't care. It makes your children assume you've given up. It makes your grandchildren believe you're uninterested. And without meaning to, you start building a wall that nobody knows how to climb. People stop asking deeper questions because they worry they're intruding. They stop inviting you out because they assume you prefer being alone. Bit by bit, life becomes quieter. Not because people left you, but because your silence pushed them away. Remaining emotionally open isn't about sharing everything. It's about letting the people who love you know they still matter. The fourth habit is living too much in the past. Memory is a beautiful gift, but it becomes a burden when you use it as your only place of comfort. Many seniors spend hours revisiting old arguments, old regrets, or old triumphs. They compare the present to the past until the present feels disappointing by default. But nostalgia has a sharp edge. It can make the life you have feel smaller than the life you lived. When every conversation begins with "back in my day," younger generations quietly disconnect. They cannot live in your memories, and they cannot compete with your past. Life at 80 becomes richer when you allow the present to have value. Your past is wisdom, but your present is still alive, still unfolding, still offering moments worth noticing. Living only in yesterday is the quickest way to lose today. Look, once you cross 80, something powerful happens. You stop caring about crowds and start caring about connections. This stage of life strips away the noise, the ego, the unnecessary social pressure, and leaves behind only the relationships that actually nourish your soul. And here's what truly begins to happen after 80. 1. You lose interest in superficial friendships. At this age, there's no time for fake smiles, forced conversations, or people who drain your energy. You no longer invest effort in those who don't reciprocate warmth. Instead, you naturally gravitate toward meaningful bonds, the kind where you don't have to pretend, where silence feels comfortable, and where hearts speak louder than words. Quality beats quantity. Always. 2. The people you love become your real wealth. Your real treasure isn't the house you built, not the money you saved, not the achievements you collected. Your real wealth becomes the people who still show up for you. A daughter who calls, a grandson who visits, a neighbor who checks on you, a spouse who still holds your hand. At 80 plus, love and companionship become the true currency of life. 3. You start letting go of old grudges. Holding on to old anger becomes heavy, unnecessarily heavy. So naturally, you start releasing bitterness, not because others apologized, but because peace matters more than being right. You begin forgiving the parent who didn't know better, the friend who disappeared, the sibling who fought over petty things, even the past version of yourself. Forgiveness becomes freedom. 4. You crave conversation more than entertainment. In your youth, you might have wanted noise, events, parties, but after 80, you crave simple moments, a deep conversation over tea, sharing old stories, reminiscing about childhood, laughing over memories, sitting with someone who understands your silence. Connection becomes more nourishing than any entertainment. 5. You start appreciating the few who stayed. Life teaches a beautiful but painful lesson. Not everyone walks with you till the end. As years go by, your circle becomes smaller but stronger. You start valuing the friend who still remembers your birthday, the partner who still looks at you the way they did decades ago, the child who still seeks your advice, the person who asks, "Have you eaten?" Loyalty becomes deeply precious. 6. Your heart softens in a beautiful way. Something truly magical happens. Your heart becomes gentler, your patience becomes deeper, your compassion becomes richer. You stop judging, you stop comparing, you stop competing. Instead, you start observing life with wisdom, kindness, and gratitude. This is the age where you genuinely feel love more deeply than ever. 7. You realize relationships outlive material things. At 80 plus, you finally see what truly matters. People, not possessions. Moments, not milestones. Memories, not money. Life becomes less about what you own, and more about who you've loved. Once you cross 80, your body becomes an honest storyteller. It tells the truth you ignored in your youth. It whispers warnings, gives reminders, and sends messages, sometimes softly, sometimes loudly. This is the stage where your physical health doesn't just change. It redefines your lifestyle, your habits, and your priorities. Here's what inevitably begins to happen. 1. Your body slows down, but your awareness sharpens. You may not move as fast as you once did. Getting up from a chair takes a moment. Climbing stairs feels different. Your steps become smaller, more measured, more careful. But here's the blessing. While your body slows, your awareness becomes sharper. You listen to your body more. You respect its limits. You finally understand that rest is not laziness, it's wisdom. 2. Strength becomes something you have to protect. At this age, strength isn't something you can take for granted anymore. Your muscles shrink faster. So every small effort counts. Light stretching, gentle walks, a short morning routine, simple balance exercises, holding on to railings, choosing safety over pride. Every little act of care becomes an act of self-love. 3. Your healing time changes. A younger body recovers quickly. An older body takes its time. A small injury takes longer to repair. A late night takes longer to bounce back from. A stressful week takes longer to unwind. But this slowness isn't a punishment. It's a reminder to treat your body with patience and kindness, not frustration. 4. You become more sensitive to what you eat. Food becomes more than food. It becomes medicine or poison. At 80 plus, your body reacts to things it once tolerated. Heavy meals, excess salt, too much sugar, large late-night dinners, dehydration. You learn to eat lighter, slower, cleaner. Suddenly, simple meals taste better, and overeating feels unnecessary. Your body asks for balance, not indulgence. 5. Fatigue feels different. This type of tiredness is not just physical. It's mental, emotional, spiritual. You start conserving energy for the things that matter. People you love, tasks that fulfill you, activities that calm your soul. You stop wasting strength on arguments, drama, gossip, or obligations that drain you. Fatigue becomes a guide, not an enemy. 6. Your priorities shift toward comfort and stability. At this age, comfort isn't luxury, it's necessity. You begin choosing softer clothing, warmer rooms, comfortable shoes, simpler routines, safer movements, calmer environments. This isn't weakness. This is age mastery, knowing what protects your body and what doesn't. 7. You understand the real value of sleep. Sleep becomes precious. A deep, peaceful nap becomes one of life's purest pleasures. You no longer chase late-night distractions. You prefer early evenings, soft blankets, quiet rooms, warm tea, slow mornings, because you finally understand that a rested body is a healthy body. 8. You become grateful for the parts of your body that still work. You stop criticizing your wrinkles, your gray hair, your slower steps. Instead, you feel gratitude. Your hands still hold. Your eyes still see sunlight. Your legs still take you from room to room. Your heart still beats faithfully every second. And you begin to appreciate your body not for how it looks, but for how much it has carried you through. After 80, something profound shifts inside a person. It's not about the body this time, it's about the soul. Your relationship with life becomes softer, slower, and much more honest. You begin to understand things younger people rush past. You start to see the world with a clarity that only age can give. Let's explore the changes that happen in the emotional and spiritual layers of life. 1. Silence becomes a companion, not an enemy. When you were younger, silence felt empty. You needed noise, movement, plans, goals. You needed to be somewhere, doing something. But in your 80s, silence becomes gentle. You sit alone and feel peace instead of loneliness. You enjoy the quiet early mornings, the still afternoons, the soft evenings. Your thoughts no longer scare you. You no longer run from yourself. Silence stops being a void. It becomes a friend. 2. The meaning of happiness changes completely. Happiness no longer comes from achievements or possessions. It doesn't come from showing the world what you can do. Now, happiness comes from a warm conversation, a comfortable chair, a good cup of tea, a peaceful walk, a familiar song, a visit from someone you love. You stop chasing big moments. You start cherishing the small ones. You realize the small things were always the big things. 3. You become selective with people. At this age, you don't want crowds. You don't want drama. You don't want loud, careless company. You want the people who truly care. The ones who bring calmness, not chaos. The ones who listen, not judge. The ones who stay, not disappear. Your circle becomes smaller, but it becomes pure. 4. You forgive more easily. Something softens inside you. You start letting old anger dissolve. You realize holding grudges wastes precious time. You understand that forgiveness isn't for the other person. It's for your own peace. You start forgiving old friends, family members, yourself, especially yourself. You finally accept that the past cannot be edited, only understood. 5. You stop competing with anyone. In youth, life feels like a race. Everyone is trying to get ahead. But after 80, you understand something younger people rarely realize. There is no race. There never was. You stop comparing your life to others, your age, your income, your achievements, your health, your looks. You simply live. And that feeling is freeing. 6. You become emotionally honest. You no longer pretend to like people. You no longer hide your needs. You no longer say yes when you mean no. Your emotional honesty becomes clear, simple, and pure. If you're tired, you say so. If you're worried, you express it. If something brings you joy, you value it openly. There is no space left for pretending. Life becomes too precious for that. 7. You start valuing time as the real treasure. Not money, not status, not possessions. Just time. Time with the right people. Time in peaceful moments. Time in reflection. Time in gratitude. You begin to understand that time is the only true currency of life. And every minute deserves respect. 8. You accept life's fragility with grace. This is perhaps the deepest transformation. You understand that life is temporary, but that doesn't frighten you. It makes you cherish every breath. You begin living with more tenderness, more compassion, more presence, more awareness. You don't cling to life. You embrace it. Because at 80 plus, you finally understand the beauty of both holding on and letting go. When you reach your 80s, life stops feeling like a straight road. It becomes a circle, one that brings you back to the things that truly matter. You begin to understand your place in the world with a clarity younger people rarely see. This stage of life comes with profound inner changes that are rarely spoken about, but universally felt. Let's explore them. 1. You start thinking about legacy, not longevity. After 80, you no longer worry about how long you will live. You worry about how you will be remembered. Not for achievements, not for money, not for success, but for kindness you offered, wisdom you shared, love you gave, lives you touched. You realize legacy isn't built by grand acts. It's built by consistent goodness, a gentle word, patient ear, a forgiving heart. These become your true gifts to the world. 2. You recognize the unspoken value of your presence. You may feel like you don't contribute as much anymore, but the truth is that your presence carries generations of history. Your stories hold lessons. Your memories hold strength. Your perspective holds wisdom. You become the anchor that keeps the family connected. Your existence itself becomes meaningful to the people who love you. Even when you say little, even when you move slower, your presence carries power. 3. You begin conserving your emotional energy. Arguments that once felt important suddenly don't matter. Being right loses importance. Proving a point feels exhausting. Winning debates feels unnecessary. You choose peace over pride. You choose harmony over ego. You choose calmness over conflict. Your emotional energy becomes precious, and you stop giving it away cheaply. 4. Gratitude becomes a daily language. In your 80s, gratitude doesn't come from big moments. It comes from the smallest details of living. The warmth of sunlight, the comfort of your bed, a call from your children, a meal you enjoy, a neighbor waving hello, a bird singing near your window. You start seeing miracles where others see routine. Life becomes richer, not because circumstances change, but because your awareness deepens. 5. You understand the difference between being alone and feeling lonely. You can sit alone in a room and feel peaceful. You can sit with a crowd and feel unseen. After 80, you start choosing meaningful company over general company. You no longer need people around you constantly. You need people who make you feel valued. And when you finally find those rare souls, your heart holds onto them with quiet gratitude. 6. You start planning your days with intention, not obligation. You stop rushing. You stop forcing. You stop filling your schedule with things you no longer enjoy. Instead, you ask, what feels right for me today? What brings me comfort? What brings me joy? What brings me peace? Your days become softer. Your routines become gentle. Your decisions become thoughtful. Life becomes something you shape slowly, not something that pushes you around. 7. You become a teacher without trying. Young people start looking at you differently. They seek your advice. They ask your opinion. They value your presence. Not because you're perfect, but because you've lived. Without forcing it, you become the guide, the storyteller, the mentor, the quiet lighthouse. Your life becomes a lesson, and people learn simply by listening. 8. You discover a new kind of courage. It is not the courage to climb mountains or run marathons. It is the courage to face uncertainty with grace, to wake up each day with appreciation, to smile even when the body aches, to keep loving even when friends are gone, to hold hope even when the future is unclear, to continue living with dignity, depth, and meaning. This courage is invisible but powerful, and it grows stronger with age.